Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Topbin90 Podcast. Yes, you heard it right. 1-0. Double-digit podcast for the Topbin90 Podcast now. I'm excited. We've got two of the best MLS minds in Charlotte today. We have Mr. Brian Bam Maurer Media. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Rocking and rolling, just like Charlotte FC.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we have Mr. Always on Time, Toño Ramos. How are you?
Hey, this is the very first time I'm not on time, so apologize on the delay. But
all good, all good.
You know, what a time to be in Charlotte with the team performing this way and Copa America coming to the city, and the Euros is a great summer for soccer in the U.S.
Summer for soccer, you're right. I mean, yesterday was pretty cool, Euros, Copa America. So it's just like there's soccer everywhere. So I love it. So here's some of the topics that we're going to discuss today, right? Obviously, we'll go through Charlotte FC's win against Philadelphia Union. Big win, big game for Patrick Agyemang as well, We'll touch on Charlotte FC's interest in Callum Wilson and what could a striker like him provide to this team. 9 goals for Charlotte in the last 5 matches. We want to talk about some of those factors of the improvement up top, I want to see where you guys think Charlotte could finish this season, right? So I think most of us weren't expecting them to do this well, especially given all the, external factors, the non-DPs, right? And I want to talk a little bit about what it seems like Charlotte's prioritizing a 9 over a 10 this summer window. We have a question from Evan, one of our subscribers, with, this tough run of stretch coming up. How many points do you think we could get in the next 4 games? I also want to touch on some controversial comments made by now Cruz Azul player, Giakoumakis, and who better to answer that than Toño here. And then we'll also touch on Houston Dynamo. So let's get right into it. Charlotte FC with a 2-0 win away. One of the things that Dean has mentioned is he wants the players to go away and it not feel like they're away, And you know what? Based off some of the most recent results, obviously going to Atlanta, winning against Philadelphia as well, it feels like this team is starting to get into their groove outside of Charlotte, which is even more crucial to, obviously winning at home, I think, puts you in a good position to make a playoff, but winning away puts you in an even better position to secure maybe a 4th or 5th. So I'll start with you, Brian. Talk to us about what you saw this game.
Yeah, I think in this game what we saw was consistent attacking volume pretty much throughout. They had 18 shots. Their XG was super high, 2.8, right? So they actually put up a decent amount of attacking volume. Up until this point, a lot of the times Charlotte really had to take advantage of the big chances they had if they were going to find goals. This time they had a plethora of chances really throughout the game. They looked like the better team for decent stretches of that game, if not almost the entire game. And I'd say just overall, they were, the better team on the road. And it was a situation where they got to take advantage of kind of Philly's weaknesses in terms of Gazdag being gone.
Yeah, they had probably 4 or 5 notable absences.
Right, Carranza had just gotten sold. So, it's just a situation where it was a good opportunity to take on Philly on the road and a good opportunity for them to take advantage of that and get 3 points, and they did.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have been missing just since Charlotte FC's inaugural season, is not taking advantage of good opportunities and good spots and getting points, and they have been doing that all year.
Yeah, speaking of not taking advantage of good opportunities, we almost saw a blunder from Kalina in those first couple of minutes, uncharacteristic, like Dean said of him this season, right? So, Toño, talk to me a little bit about what you saw this game, right? Obviously, a guy being in question recently has been Patrick Agyemang for not scoring, and he put 2 goals this weekend, to kind of further cement himself as a solid player for Charlotte.
Yeah, last time Patrick scored was May 12th, so that's great for him having his first brace. So I see a very mature team. We're seeing an adult version of Charlotte FC, and I am enjoying this stretch of games because this is the best soccer we have seen Charlotte FC play in our history, probably.
Yeah.
Because they know how to read games, study the teams, when to attack, when to defend, when to suffer, quote unquote. But it's part of the game. You're not gonna dominate 90 minutes. You're just gonna take advantage of those opportunities. And Patrick is he was clinical when he needed to be. But I really see a very composed team, very mature team that really knows how to read the moments of the game and, prioritizing what we know, defending. And it's like a boxer. No, the first rounds are just studying the rounds. And then in the second half, they just punch you. That's how I see Charlotte FC playing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, absolutely. Like, I'm even surprised in just how well things are. Even like if we go back to the Orlando match, we were down a man, and we were up in that game, right? And I think that's one of the things that stuck out to me about like a guy like Patrick Agyemang. Like maybe he's not scoring often, but the way he won that ball against Orlando and gave that pass to Brant Bronica, I was like, that's the sort of stuff that you like to see from a striker, even when they're not scoring, right? And I mean, he's got 5 goals, 2 assists so far this season, and I think people forget, like, he's kind of put in a position to be the main guy right now. And, like, he's doing a decent job,
He still has less than 1,500 career MLS minutes, right? In his career.
It's nuts.
And he's kind of being put under, like, a DP level kind of pressure because that's the situation he's in. Yeah. So, honestly, he's only going to grow and get better from that kind of pressure if he can continue to show up. This past week has been a huge week for him, I'd say. From that hold-up play to get the assist, I think that was a big moment for him, just showing that he showed so many different aspects of his game in this last week, beating 2 defenders, holding the ball up, making the right play, getting the assist. Then missed a decent header opportunity, like a really good chance in the first half against Philly. Then came back, won aerial, got the header goal, and then beat Glesnes, one of the best MLS defenders, cooked him, and then scored near post with his left foot, his weak foot. So he showed in this last week that he can take players on, even the best in MLS. He can dribble, score with both feet, score with his header, hold up play, fight multiple defenders off and win the ball in a 50-50 chance, which is technically less than a 50-50 chance for him, but he's turning it into a winnable situation. I think this week he's shown just how many different... His ceiling is very, 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 very
Absolutely. High. Jaime calls him El Guerrero de la Noche. That's the night warrior, because he's always, fighting against defenders, and his physicality is just... Yeah.
Sometimes you see like these guys are about to fly off of him, some of the defenders.
And, the same thing that how referees are, refereeing Pat, and how now defenders have to prepare to someone that plays for us. That's different as well. So if you could pair him with another striker that can push him to be even better and bring some competition, that's what this team needs. So he can carry the load for the rest of the season, but it's not ideal. You're going to need someone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this window, like we've mentioned before, is going to be important. And I also want to touch a little bit about, that change that we've seen Dean make, like testing out that, higher 8/10. We saw that with Scott Artfield. Obviously, he came off, and then we saw it with Ben Bender, right? Finally got his opportunity from the start to see what he can do. And to me, he had decent moments in that match.
Yeah, he combined, and he helped set up that first goal, right? He combined with Urnan, then got the cross into Agyemang to put it away. He combined a little bit. I think it's his first start back in 7-8 months now. So it's been quite a while. I think just the fact that he had going after the post-match presser on Wednesday, Dean Smith made it sound like he wasn't quite ready to go from the start. That's what it sounded like after the Wednesday match. Right. So for him to put him in, it shows both that he's maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule to where they were expecting, and it also shows that he's definitely earning some of Dean Smith's trust in training.
And I also think it's a lack of having somebody in that position that he's really, really comfortable with it. Yep. More often than not, I think he's more comfortable running 3 CDMs and Brant taking up that space more from a runner perspective than an actual playmaker perspective, right? So it seems like Petkovic has also kind of falling down that pecking order, right? Yeah. If first your first choice is Arfield, and then now you're trying Ben. It's pretty interesting seeing what's going on in that position in particular.
Yeah, I see Dean trying to find a number 8 maybe that can carry the ball, be more progressive, and not playing at the same height as Ashley. So that's why you have Brand cleaning the way and being a shield. and a guy that nobody was gonna run more than Bronico.
Yeah.
So, but DJ Bill's Diani positioning when he plays, Ben Bender's positioning when he plays, you needed those type of midfielders that can take the ball to your strikers, be more progressive, and it's just a matter of profiles and players that Dean is now trusting, like Ben.
Yeah. All in all, last 10 matches, 6 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. I mean, we're
Well,
seeing
now things are going to change with Ashley being suspended, so that's a great test for Dean, and I'm excited to see that. I don't know if the team is going to appeal that yellow card, but because it was a very soft yellow from the ref at the end of regulation for Ashley, that he's going to miss the next game. But that's going to be a interesting question, what he's going to try to do without Ashley, who's taking that role. I would like to see Diani there as a holding midfielder, and then just free up Ben and Brand maybe.
Nice. Awesome. Moving on a little bit, and we'll touch a little bit more on that when we talk a little Houston, Today it was reported from Sierra and Kelly that Charlotte is one of the teams that was interested in a striker like Callum Wilson, Newcastle player, an experienced player, a goal scorer, a player with quality, right? Like when we talk about what Patrick Agyemang needs, we've mentioned often that, having an experienced striker, would be important to his development. In your article, you also mentioned Callum Wilson, right? So talk to us about being linked with a striker like this and what it could provide to Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just is a win now type move, right? Can we get a few more goals this year and next year, right? That's kind of the target, especially this year. Like, I think Agyemang has continued to show that if you keep getting him reps, he's improving and getting better. And in the future, he's like, I think he can easily be the guy. That's just where I'm at with him. I think Agyemang looks like the guy for the future. But do you want a few more goals right now? And, I mean, find a guy who's done it at the highest level, right? I mean, as early as 2020, or as recently as 2022, 2023 season, Callum Wilson had like 20-plus goal contributions. So just over a year ago, he was one of the top strikers in the Premier League. Far and above, way better level than the MLS. So he should be able to come in if he can stay healthy and get a few goals and help this team, get a little bit better in the short term. I think that's what Callum Wilson looks like to me. It's just a win now type move. Get some more goals this year, right now, and see how far Charlotte can go. Nice.
Antonio, we've talked about this in the past about, like that experience, that's something that, Pat doesn't have just yet. And, like we all kind of came to a consensus that, a move like that would be smart to add a player of experience, but like Brian said, that could do it right now.
Yeah, and that type of striker is not only going to be beneficial for the team, but for Patrick's development and really not putting pressure on him early in his career. I know that he's, shown that he's more than able to play under that type of pressure and also score goals, but Callum Wilson is a very different type of striker than Patrick. He's, a different 9. They play the same position, but different styles, and I like it's going to be a very complementary thing. That's the type of 9 that you really need.
The perfect word, complementary.
Experience is key.
Yeah.
You need a number 9 with experience, and maybe if you're still searching for a number 10, that's another story. That's a different profile that you can search.
Yeah, and so, I mean, from my understanding, it doesn't seem like this is like someone that Charlotte's like in targeting. Like, obviously, like it was reported that they showed interest in him, right? I don't see this kind of culminating in him coming to Charlotte, but it does kind of give us a peek into what Charlotte's doing, right, for the summer. And Zoran kind of alluded to it too in his interview with Willie P, where it seems like they're prioritizing bringing in a DP9 over a 10 this summer window, right? And I think we've spoken before that we would prioritize a 10 over a 9, right? We obviously have given our reasons why, right? But maybe talk to me why Charlotte would be looking at bringing more of a... Why would they be prioritizing a 9 over a 10 right now? Is it Dean's comfortable with what he has in the midfield? Is it that we need more goals? What are you guys seeing?
I see that chart, because this July is going to test our depth in this squad. Is 5 games on the road, and, summer is very challenging to play in America, so fitness level. And behind Pat is only Yuri Tavares maybe. So, depth-wise, I think you really need another number 9, but also competition. And maybe you can have different options at that number 10. As you said, Jorge, he's been trying some other players like Ben Bender, but De Jagere and Scott sometimes and Nikola Pekovic, they've missed some of those opportunities. So maybe that he's kind of relaxed that he knows he has some players in that position, but not a difference maker yet. Yeah. But he can still play with some of these different roles that he identifies in the squad. But the number 9 position is probably just Pat and Yuri. It's a very thin spot right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we've talked about this, right? Like you just mentioned, I mean, De Jagere hasn't lived up to the expectations. Scott Arfield hasn't had the best season. Pekovic. There are options, but the problem is that none of these options, like, Dean's not comfortable with, it seems like, right? And
because he's been trying different players.
It's not like
finding his guy.
He's been stubborn with one player. It's like, okay, like, what can I get? Who can provide what I need from that? Yeah. But it sounds like what Toño said, like, well, we only have one true 9 versus we can kind of rotate these guys through the season.
Yeah, I think also it's a kind of a supply and demand type of thing too, right? I think the profile of this is complete speculation, but at the DP9 with a player like Ajiman who looks like the player who can start for the future, you kind of have that locked up, right? So right now what you're looking for is a veteran striker. That's where Callum Wilson fits that profile. There are more MLS profile type strikers available in that range of the 30. I mean, we got Chris Wood, who's also available in Premier League. And that's just looking at one league. If you look across the scope of the global soccer in that 30-plus age range at striker, there's more options available. I think at the DP10, my speculation would be that they're looking for somebody more in their prime, somebody in that 26, 28 who can really be the talisman, the Lucho Acosta type figure. That's way harder to come by. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of supply and demand, the idea that you're going to get a guy in their prime to play in the midfield, those guys are probably looking for a higher tier of competition first. And if they don't get that role, then maybe they look at MLS, right? It's just harder to find that type of player. Supply and demand-wise, it's way easier to find a veteran striker to come and play as a DP than it is to find a guy in the midfield in their prime, which that would be my guess as to what they're looking for.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been 3 years now, and we haven't gotten a proper attacking playmaker. Yeah. So, I mean, like, at some point, they got to pull the trigger and find somebody with those qualities.
Yeah,
and I think also it deals with the style of play, too, priorities that, like, we're creating more chances now, at least more recently.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't play with a true number 10.
Yeah.
So it's a tactical thing, but I agree with you. It's about maybe the market as well. It's even harder to find number 10.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, one of the things that we mentioned before was just the lack of chance creation, right? Yeah. And it seems like we're increasing in that. Yeah. Although our players aren't putting them all away, right? But even having said all that, I saw, shout out to Vaughn, he pointed out this stat that Charlotte has scored 9 goals in the last 5 matches. And, that's a big improvement in terms of, production up top, right? And what do you guys think have been some of the factors that have led to this improvement? Because even, like, who did we beat 1-0 like 2 weeks ago? I can't think of the team. Right before Orlando, who did we play?
It was 2-2 Orlando, and then
it was 1-0 with a Vargas goal.
Oh yeah.
We're all booked on the plane.
Yeah. Anyways, that game, Charlotte had DC United.
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah, right. DC. Charlotte had multiple opportunities to make that game, and 2-0, 3-0. I think Vargas missed 2. Pat had a really good chance, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, from a chance creation standpoint.
The handball that was not called.
Yeah, that's what Benteke, yep. So, from a chance creation perspective, it looks like we're improving there, right? Obviously, it's the finishing, right? But 9 goals in 5 matches tells you a story.
Yeah, and even, I will take out the New York Red Bulls game. They lost 3-1 there. That's kind of just like it was a strange game. They went down.
It's a tricky game, yeah.
And so they scored the 1 late, but really it's 8 goals in 4, right? If you really like looking at the performance where Charlotte really started to come on strong, at least on the offensive third, it was like the last 4 games. And I'd say a lot of it was finishing. Like Abada had those 2 really nice chances against Atlanta. Vargas had his good finish against DC. Ajimon had 2 really good finishes this last week against Philly, or this on Saturday against Philly. And then you had the nice finishes against Orlando as well. If you look at the volume, they had a little bit more. But for me, in those 4 games, their XG was about 6.4, and their goals for was at 7. So they actually matched what their attacking volume that they were creating. Up until now, they really, I mean, their XG had been higher than their goals. And so for me, that just their finishing hasn't been there really most of the season. Now, at the same respect, their expected assisted goals is like ranked. I wrote this in the article last week. They're like 28th in the league. They're like right at the bottom in terms of overall creation. So that still does need to get improved. But their finishing, I would say, over the last 3 or 4 games has definitely taken a step up.
Yeah, you don't see those XGs if your wingers are not producing. And I actually think Abada is winning more 1v1s.
Yeah.
Kerwin Vargas is winning more 1v1s. That's all you needed. Just create those mismatches, those opportunities for your wingers to feel comfortable in this system. And I think now Dean trusts them a lot. I mean, I don't see this team producing without Liel and Kerwin right now. There's no way. So those guys are just 2 key components, and that's what you needed. Production from your wingers, not only scoring, because Avala scored 2 in Atlanta, Kerwin scored back-to-back games, and now Patrick is scoring. You're not just relying on one guy to score or create a chances. So first of all, you got to create those 1v1s, and then those guys with their, different qualities, Avada's explosiveness, Kerwin's just, very creative with the ball. So that's why you need it.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, well, I was going to mention that, your important players are becoming a factor.
Yeah.
Now, your U22 player in Corwin Vargas scored back-to-back goals, Liel Abada, your DP, had a phenomenal game in Atlanta, right? Your striker and Patrick Ajiman, like, as long as these guys continue to produce, right, I can still see the production, obviously, like you mentioned, like creating is still a need, but as long as these guys are putting away some of these chances, then we'll be okay.
And when some of the other midfielders, let's say Diani or Ben, they, push to the box, that cleans a lot of that zone, and you can have more 1v1s for your wingers. And also, I think Jere Uronen is a very, very productive player, 4 assists. Nobody kind of talks about Jere.
Yeah.
He's a very smart guy because he knows when to join the attack, when to overlap, when to not do that. Nathan, we know his abilities, but he's more of a, third defender role. But Jere, I mean, his assisting is phenomenal this season.
And I mean, he's due for a goal too. He's hit the post at least 3 times.
That's what I took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was about to say. He's hit the bar several times this year. And then Byrne had that really nice run in this last week where he just drove right towards the box. And I would say the one last thing is just reps between Vargas, Ajiman, and Abada. I think this is the longest stretch where we've had all 3 of the same attacking front playing together multiple times in a row. We kind of had, obviously, Capetti, before he was transferred out, was rotated in as a starter a lot, and then Abada got hurt. So you just kind of had consistency amongst your top 3 where they just kept getting reps together. And if you add reps, especially for a young trio like that, where all 3 of them are like 20. I mean, Ajiman's the oldest, and he's 23, and he's got the least amount of experience. So you've got a really young, inexperienced group up top. So at the end of the day, reps are also required.
Nice.
That's why I really think this is the best stretch of Charlotte FC soccer that we have seen in the last 3 years.
Speaking of, the best stretch, right? Where do you guys see this team finishing this season? I mean, obviously, like, we're currently 4th, right? There's still probably, 14 games left to play,
Long way to go.
Yeah, obviously, when I thought we would finish 9th this season, I think based on the amount of points, we've got a decent shot of, finishing in this top 4, right? But where do you guys see this team finishing this season?
I just want to say we got to take it one step at a time, really, because after
come
July...
on, Toño.
No, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. But also, we got to be true. July is going to be very testing.
Yeah.
You're going to play against very good opposition. And I see this team finishing 4th place, really.
Oh, okay.
I don't see...
Wow,
I mean, because Inter
that.
Miami...
He did flip that. I thought he was going to give us a political answer. Then
Still
he switched it
going
up.
one step at a time. But I really see Inter Miami, Cincinnati, and Columbus Crew being top 3 in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird if we don't see those 3 teams at the very top. So I think if you could break the tiebreaker with both of New York teams, you're going to have a really good chance to host a playoff game in Charlotte. So I think that's very doable, but still it's a huge test. Again, Leagues Cup's coming. They're going to test your depth, who you're going to rotate, and then attack the remainder of the season, who's going to come in the transfer window. Those are the challenges that I see this team that I think they can overcome. I trust Dean really with my eyes closed, and this team is really, really
I'm gonna have you
put in
do
a
a
great
trust
game.
fall, and he's gonna be right behind you.
He will be. He will be. Yeah. So I really see them fourth place, but we gotta keep it
Fourth
slowly.
place.
slowly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. That he was bold. I like it.
Yeah, I mean,
Brian?
I think top two is almost impossible at this point,
Yeah.
right? They're 7 points off of Cincinnati, and they got a game in hand. And Cincinnati and Miami look like just
Exactly.
outrageously good.
Yeah.
Columbus, I think, is
I mean,
also
Miami's winning games with 9 men.
it's insane what they're doing. Columbus Crew also, I mean, they're behind Charlotte, but they got 3 games in hand, and they
Yep.
are starting to really catch fire. Cucho
Yeah.
has like 9 goals in his last 5 games or something ridiculous. He's starting to really catch fire. So I think Columbus is definitely, like you said, top 3 teams right there. Now the question is, again, like you said, New York, can they keep up with New York? I do think the Red Bulls have a little bit more of a complete team right now. They don't have Lewis Morgan, right? So their midfield is a little bit stretched because of like Forsberg was on international duty. Morgan is on international duty right now. So, I mean, I think once those guys get back, they're going to be pretty good. They also, I mean, their young players showed up this last week as well. They've got a good young core as well. So I think they are a very good, complete team. So in terms of roster build, I think they're a step or 2 ahead of Charlotte. Now, Dean has been able to make up that difference just in terms of his ability to coach well. So we'll kind of see. I think that's the big, question. Can Charlotte win that spot over New York Red Bulls? I think that's really the position.
Both of the New York teams, you're gonna try to
yeah.
get the tiebreakers so you can be fourth place. Other than those 2 teams, it's hard to see another opposition right now that can really challenge Charlotte's and both of New York's for that fourth place. Again, there's a long way to go. So many games left to play, but
That's the thing about
I see
MLS. 2 teams can be streaky, So like you never know. Like what if? Well, and Nashville's going through a coaching change too. But what if they get on a streak, right? So
New England is won 4 in a row, and now they went from wooden spoon to like 3 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, you're right.
And they still have Carlos Hill, who's a defending MLS MVP. So you just never know. That whole like Caleb
I still
Porter
want
trust
to
the
trade for
process.
Carlos Hill.
Yeah.
So if you need some, we have some gam there, I can send them some gam.
Love it, Brian. Where will we finish?
I think 5 to 7 is just about a lock. I think
Okay.
in that range is about a lock. I think
Yeah.
4th is a pretty huge question mark. Now, I think we can cover that question. Are we still going to, if we get to the subscriber question, I think we can discuss a little bit about the point total. I think this next stretch kind of decides whether or not Charlotte can get into the 4th spot or not.
For sure, yeah.
And the amount of wins is very important because that's the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go ahead and say 6, and then we'll move
Nice.
on. I think we'll go through a rough patch, right? Because I mean we're one or two, like if Pat gets injured, God forbid, right, or Abada or some like, it gets really thin, really fast. So
This Westwood missing this game is going to be super telling to see how much depth they. I mean, I don't know if we have a replacement for a Westwood.
perfect, awesome. All right, so I want to touch a little bit on Giakoumakis' statements that he made. I think it was in his introductory presser with Cruz Azul. Where he said he doesn't think he thinks the level in Liga MX is higher than MLS, and that in MLS it's okay to lose some games, and he kind of hated that, and so I've been pretty critical of MLS in terms of how 9 teams make playoffs, and 2 teams, 7 make playoffs, 2 make play-in. So to me, it breeds complacency, right? And so to hear somebody like him say it as well, like, you know what, like, I just want to know, does he have a point or not? And I'll start off with the Cruz Azul fan, Toño.
Well, I grew up watching Liga MX, so I really have to say that the level 10 years ago was way better than what we're seeing right now in Liga MX, although I don't think MLS is still the superior league in CONCACAF. Not yet. It will be, but not yet. And well, Georgios, I have news for you. In Mexico, we don't have relegation system,
Yeah,
and we just
it
have
changed,
18
yeah.
teams. There are some meaningless games in Liga MX as well. So there are some teams that they don't fight anymore for, maybe an international competition. Let's say the CONCACAF Champions Cup, no, or avoiding relegation. You don't see that anymore. So it's a short season in Mexico. Is not as long as MLS, so that might be a difference. But I truly think that tactically Mexico is still one step ahead of MLS, but the talent is now coming to the US. So Mexico won't compete with US, cities, infrastructure, money, because that's South American market, and maybe some of the European market. Their first option now is MLS, not Liga MX.
Yeah.
So that U.S. soccer flipped the script, but I think level-wise, the competition Liga MX, I think is still a little bit above of MLS, but not for a long time. I think MLS is gonna overtake Liga MX, and I don't see a point, turning back point for Mexico to compete with all these factors that I just mentioned.
Nice. Brian?
Yeah, I think also this quote specifically shows a little bit of like the friction between him and Gonzalo
Exactly.
Pineda.
Yeah.
Pineda famously said about a year ago that he thought Mexican coaches should come to MLS because you have this like more leeway. He's like, in Mexico, the demand is higher,
It's
so you
pressure
have more
off
right?
the get-go,
And
yeah.
so I think
Yeah.
I think there's maybe some differences in terms of how Giakoumakis and Pineda maybe saw MLS and or just see the game in general, and so that maybe causes some of the friction. I think it also depends on where you go. Like in Atlanta, clearly because of Pineda taking that stance, maybe in Atlanta right now it's a little bit more lax. Charlotte has not been. They have fired 2 coaches in 2 seasons right before they get to Dean
Right.
Smith. I think Seattle, if you look at Seattle, their demand is their expectation is to win now and win always, right? I think if you look at Columbus Crew, it's a similar type of expectation. So I think it depends on where you're at in MLS. The expectation, LAFC, LA Galaxy, they had like a whole strike against their president. They're like, you fire your president or we're not coming to games.
No, there's pressure
So-
everywhere in MLS or Liga MX. That you have to perform at the highest level. He's going to Cruz
Yeah.
Azul, one of the top 3-4 teams in Mexico. We saw the CONCACAF Champions Cup, the run that Columbus Crew had. They eliminated Monterrey and Tigres, 2 of the wealthiest clubs in Mexico, but they struggled with Pachuca, like a very young squad, but very well coached. So they're just different factors. I really think the financial difference between MLS and Liga MX, that's going to create a huge gap in the future. But right now, I think it's pretty even, but I still have Liga MX slightly over MLS. Not
For
for a
sure.
while.
I mean, obviously, to me, anytime like they take a dig on that the complacency in MLS, to me, it's a good thing. That means that put pressure on MLS to make the league more competitive, right? And then lastly, really quickly, let's go over a little bit. Houston, 5 games unbeaten, no Carrasquilla, right? Which an important player, So we've benefited off of Copa America and Euros. And give me quickly what you see heading into Houston.
Well, Houston's always a tough place to play ever since Ben Olsen took over last year. Houston is a quality team. Carrasquilla is one of my favorite players in all of MLS to watch. So it's obviously him being missing is a huge loss for Houston, but they still have a lot of other talent that is showing up. Ache, of course, of late. And then Latif Blessing out of nowhere has really shown up for them in a big way. He's like their leading goal scorer right now. So they're kind of just finding a way to
Latif
piece
is
it
like
together
his
and make it work.
4th team in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Because he's been trading places.
Everywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's gonna be a challenge to see how we play without Ashley.
Yeah.
So
That's the key.
that's my key to the game. Who's gonna kind of replace him, because you can't replace Ashley, but who's gonna fit in that role? That's gonna be an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think just based off the cushion that we've made for ourselves, especially with 7 points in the last 3 games as well, it's not necessary. Like to me, like last year we were fighting, like we got to go away and try to maintain in that play-in spot. Now we've built a cushion, right, and the team's more comfortable going away, so that's a big positive for me. And to me, I'll take a draw away in Houston. So
Oh yeah, for sure. And shout out to Andrew Privet. After this game, he'll be the only outfield player to have played every single minute in Charlotte FC this year.
That's awesome. Nice.
And still the only player 25 years old under that he's, played 19 games, 20 games consecutive so far. So yeah, that consistency in the back line is key as we all know. So, and again, physically the fitness level is going to be tested again in that, very humid and hot night. I think will be in Houston.
Some quick score predictions.
I have Charlotte winning 2-1.
Nice. I like it.
I think I'm going to go 1-1. I'm definitely a little uncomfortable with how Westwood, a lack of Westwood's going to be. I mean, it's just a different team. He makes everybody better.
Yeah.
So I think a 1-1 draw is fair.
Yeah, me too. 1-1 for the same reason. I think we're going to see a team without Ashley, so it might be slightly different. With that said, Toño, where can we find you at?
Well, you can find me on X at Ramos019. So just join the conversation, and you can listen to our games 106.1 FM. We're gonna start every 30 minutes before the game with a pregame show. So hope you can join us.
Nice, Brian.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mauer Media. You can also find all my written content at Topbin90.com.
Love it. Jorge Gonzalez, Topbin90 on all the socials. Thank you guys. Another episode in the works. Go!